Good morning and welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. That's an oldie there, taking you way back. Well, the Foundation for the Enhancement and Enrichment of Life, FEEL, collaborates with civil society organizations to assist disadvantaged persons throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Now, last week, you will remember the Chief Executive Officer of FEEL, Ms. Elena Villafana Sylvester. She was here. We spoke about the fact that FEEL has provided donations, as we would have mentioned, and today we plan to discuss this initiative a little bit further as it pertains to the relationship with the regional corporations. Good morning and welcome.
Hi,
it's a pleasure
good
to have you.
morning.
So you've been continuing the great work. What update can you provide us?
Well, just yesterday, we actually provided a donation of disaster blankets to regional corporations across Trinidad. Now, I have to say that Tobago has not received their stock yet, but they are not forgotten. We actually have their stock holding for them. But the regional corporations came to our warehouse, and each of them received uh, 2 pallet loads, which is equivalent to over 200 and close to 250 disaster blankets. The idea is that if something happens in their area, in their community, they will immediately have supplies so that they could assist individuals in need.
So it's a proactive approach.
Exactly.
Instead of rushing and scampering to get supplies, you're
Exactly.
trying to ensure that it's there.
Yes, exactly.
What goes into this?
Well, it takes a lot of pre-planning, but it also takes a lot of reading and educating yourself on what what transpires after disaster happens. And very interestingly, we had a meeting with the head of disaster coordination from Dominica. And one of the challenges that always happens after a disaster, even if you have supplies that you can assist individuals with, if those are not pre-positioned, what you find is that getting to the location that actually has the supplies is difficult. So we took a different approach this year, and that is why we've actually invited the corporations in to receive a stock so that they are ready to move in case of an emergency.
So in terms of distribution, I think that's where they would come in as well to ensure that the distribution method is actually, it's not corrupt in any way.
Exactly. And one of the important things is that they're the first responders,
Right.
yes? So we're providing actual, we define it as goods in kind, but for members of the public it's the actual supply that they need. So it's not about going to a company to try and source an item at the point in time after the disaster happens. They have a box, they have blankets in it. If a family has to move to a shelter, the family has that. Or even if they're staying in their own, in their own facility, then they can actually give it to them so that they can have some comfort, while
Yes.
the situation is resolved. The other thing I would like to say that is really exciting for us is that in addition to the disaster blankets, that was just phase one, but we're hoping that we're also going to provide them with a stock of basic food supplies, which is really tinned beans. And I am hoping that we can do that over the next couple of weeks and have that as well pre-positioned across Trinidad and Tobago.
What really goes into something like this in terms of getting people on board to be
Yes.
part of this initiative?
Right. So if we take it from step one going right through to actually receiving the items,
Yes.
it's really getting the public to assist us, corporate and corporate Trinidad and Tobago, to support the work of FEEL, to support the efforts by donating to FEEL. When we receive those donations, then we have to determine how best to use it. We all know that last year, the hurricane season was horrible.
Yes.
We cannot wait for things to happen, so we plan ahead. So then our next step is, how do we best use the donations? We should plan for, in case a disaster happens during the hurricane season locally. So we use the funds that the companies provide to us and individuals to identify items that we would like to purchase. Then we acquire that stock, and then we meet with the corporations. We explain to them what our plan is, what our idea is. We get their buy-in and support. Do they want to be part of this? And then really coordinating with them as to how they will receive the donations, when they can come to collect it, etc. And then distributing that. So it means trucks coming to the warehouse on a defined day at a defined time to collect the supplies, and then the supplies go into their communities, and they of course have to find their warehouse space, ensure that they keep the stock in a safe place, and then they're ready for action.
Now, you mentioned that last year we had a pretty bad, terrible hurricane season.
Yes.
However, it's been predicted that this year can be even worse.
Yes.
Would you say that you've been working on the ground to enhance the entire structure of this thing to make it a little bit more proactive, perhaps? Even?
Definitely, thank you. That's a wonderful observation, because last week, you remember, we spoke about how we have gotten members of communities involved
Yes.
in our preparations. So we're preparing at a number of levels. So the same supplies that were given to the regional corporations, we have also distributed to over 100 civil society organizations. Not the same quantity, because
Right.
of course these organizations are smaller. So we have organizations as well that have disaster stock so that they are pre-positioned in their communities. And I want to, if we take our minds back to last year, there were places that flooded in Penal, in Carapo, etc. We were able to respond to the needs that, when the event occurred, and provide supplies to our civil society organizations that already partner with us and work in these communities. So the learning experience from last year is, while we have to wait, so your home is flooded on Saturday, and the field warehouse, someone has to contact field, and then they have to make, come down and collect the warehouse. So by us being proactive this year and actually giving all our civil society partners their stock, it means that everyone is in a better place to help. Now, I know we cannot provide things to cover all of Trinidad and Tobago, but what we are really doing, and we're asking for the support of members of the public, is we're trying to plan ahead in case there is an eventuality, so that all of us, through our collective efforts, can be more responsive to the most vulnerable individuals in our society.
So in the coming weeks and months, what areas are you focusing on and what plans are being put in place?
So there are a number of different aspects to this disaster coordination. One of the things that I would like to see happen, and I'm not sure, how feasible this is, but is to actually pre-position some quantity of medical supplies as well. So I'm talking about things perhaps like gurneys, and we're learning from our Caribbean neighbors, right? So we're meeting with them and getting their feedback from them on some of the important things that that they needed to have. One of the things that they said they needed was actually a suture gun, because when people get cut during the hurricane after flying debris, they don't have time to go to the hospitals. So having those guns available so that you can actually, on the fly, be able to respond to cuts, identifying medical professionals in the communities. So we're asking our CSOs as well, okay, do you know who the nurse is in your area? Is there a doctor in your area? So that they get to know those individuals, so that they know, where you can go to if you need that kind of support. So we're talking about doing a lot of work on the ground as well as providing basic supplies. So we're trying to do a very holistic approach in terms of the experiences of our neighbors and how we could learn from that to ensure that we are ready for any eventuality in the future.
Wonderful. What are your closing comments? What would you like to say to those looking on, wondering if they should be part of this, and why should they?
I have to tell you, you have to get on board. The thing is that none of us really wants to see anything happen. And I know we say God is a Trini and, and no disaster is going to hit here, but we do not know. And we cannot predict with any certainty that nothing is going to happen. So let us get prepared. We spoke last week and we said, get prepared in your individual homes, but we have a responsibility to have some preparations in place for those that are the most vulnerable, that they can't provide basic things on a monthly basis. So asking them to pre-plan and prepare and keep a stock, etc., in case there's a disaster is not feasible. How can we put those things in place so that we're not caught, so to speak, with our pants down? We are ready in case there's any eventuality that happens. So please join with us. Please support us. You can donate to FEEL. If you go to our Facebook page, FEEL TNT, you can get our account number there. and, make a donation to us and help support the work that we do.
Apart from monetary donations, what items are you open to receive?
Well, the thing is that monetary is the best thing because we are trying to buy items in bulk so that we can get it at the most, cost effective. And then remember that we want to distribute these supplies across, to a wide cross section of individuals. So we want to have not, we don't want to end up in a case where we have, too much of one thing or, or one of something that is a vital supply. Then how do you decide who gets it? So, it's better for us to act collectively so that we can respond in an organized and strategic way.
Wonderful. And all that information would be found at your website, your Facebook
on our Facebook page. Feel, T-A-N-D-T. Feel, T-and-T.
Wonderful. Well, it's always a pleasure having you, and we look forward to chatting with you once again next week, Thursday, same time.
Thank you.
We've been chatting with Ms. Elena Villafana Sylvester, CEO of FEEL, and she invites you to be part of this initiative and contact them on their Facebook page. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for joining us. News is up next. I'm Veena Bharat. Have a great one.